Okay, so this is our senior seminar project. Our names are Mabel Diaz, Jocelyn Velasquez, and Giselle Leon. For the identification of the problem behavior and its significance, I'm going to be showing the next slides. For my target behavior, I choose non-compliance when alarm that signals it's time to go to sleep goes off. The behavior topography, it's described as any instance where I ignore, silence, turn off the alarm that signals it is time to sleep at 11 p.m. and engage in scrolling through social media or watching TV.
So my target behavior is staying up late at night instead of going to sleep at 11 p.m. And then the behavior topography is whenever I stay up later than 11 so that I can instead use my phone or watch movies.
My behavior target is going to sleep late, engaging in non-compliance to bedtime alarm. That reminds me it's time to go to sleep at 11 p.m. The behavior topography is whenever I turn off my bedtime alarm on the phone, that signals me it is time to go to sleep, and I engage in watching TV instead.
So what was the behavior selected and its significance? We selected sleeping late as our problem behavior because it's problematic to our physical and mental health. And it has really bad consequences if the person experiences insufficient sleep throughout the night. Sleeping less than 8 hours per night affects the health and overall functioning and productivity of the individual next day. And activities such as driving, concentrating on tasks, or having a positive attitude towards the conflicts that may occur during the day become challenging to the individual. As a result, our academic performance and productivity during the day also declines. Since we are all university students and also have work obligations, insufficient sleep may have an effect on how we apply and dedicate ourselves to the important tasks that occur in our daily lives. So some medical considerations, concerns, implications, and prevention. Some of the concerns that occur usually had to do with the facts that this was a group project, which means we had to interact with each other. So we make sure that everyone agree with the behavior that was selected to ensure that no one made what was doing something that they didn't feel comfortable with. We also respected everyone's privacy and made clear any personal information that will be shared. Um, so the person will feel secure in sharing that type of information. Some ethical concerns on selecting the target behavior and implication. Um, we try not to implement techniques or treatments that we were not familiar with, since they could negatively affect our already bad sleeping patterns. Um, and we refrain from implementing punishment treatments or behavior reducing techniques that we could affect the individual health. Ethical concerns after implementation include using or sharing the study and data without previous authorization from other team members.
Steps to prevent ethical situations. So number one, we communicate with one another as often as possible. Number two, we maintain confidentiality with one another, meaning the person must consent for any personal information to be shared. Number three, choosing a behavior intervention that does not include punishment or aversive procedures. Four, operationally define the target behavior, ensuring everyone has the same understanding of the behavior. Number five, discussing the target behavior with the professor for approval before implementing. Number six, any questions or concerns are immediately discussed as soon as possible instead of letting it linger. And number seven, not implementing any techniques or interventions we are not familiar with and discussing the ones in place with other teammates. And steps if ethical situations arose. So number one, stop the intervention and assess the situation. Number two, notify and communicate with other group members. And number three, if not resolved between members, contact the professor. So the literature review, summary of articles. Article number one, collateral child and parent effects of function-based behavioral interventions for sleep problems in children and adolescents with autism. So this article focused on identifying and assessing the problem behaviors that could be a factor in sleep disturbance with children. So they implemented any antecedents that may help with falling asleep faster and attaining quality sleep. So an example would be using the phone 2 hours before, not using the phone 2 hours beforehand. How it supports our treatment package. Demonstrated that through intervention, many of the common problems regarding sleep disturbances diminished and eliminated in many of the cases. The treatment had seen results rather quickly and it facilitated non-disruptive sleeping patterns for the participants, which helped improve their sleep.
Article number 2, behavioral interventions for sleep problems in people with an intellectual disability, a systematic review and meta-analysis of single case and group studies. This article was talking about the meta-analysis and systematic review that focuses on assessing sleep behavioral interventions methods in adults with intellectual disabilities. In their findings, the researchers found that sleep interventions help improve many sleep-related problems across different studies, and the improvements were likely to be maintained on the long term. How it supports our treatment package. It showed that sleep intervention may also have a positive effect on adult population, as many tend to focus on children. And many of these interventions usually involve targeting problem behaviors that may have been a factor in causing insufficient sleep and teaching more behaviors that promote quality sleep. Article number 3, apply behavior analysis, measurement, assessment, and treatment of sleep and sleep-related problems. This article was talking about the uses of bedtime fading and antecedent control in the order to help improve sleep insufficiency and sleep-related problems. Bedtime fading slowly decreases prompts or assistance until the individual can sleep independently. Antecedent control, determining the stimuli that is reinforcing or inhibiting the behavior, allowing for changes in the environment, which may result in a change in the behavior. An example, taking naps during the day. How it supports our treatment package, the methods used demonstrate that sleep intervention has a positive effect on sleep-related problems, in this case, sleeping late. Antecedent control help us see what are some of the stimuli factors contributing to sleeping late, thus facilitating alterations to the environment will impact the behavior.
So for the functional behavior assessment, I carry a functional assessment interview, which found that the behavior or interest or the target behavior was non-compliance at bedtime, 11 p.m., which is the time designed to go to sleep. The topography of the behavior that was described as turning off the alarm that signaled it was time to sleep or ignoring it, and engaging on watching TV or social media, going through social media interactions. The behavior frequency was every night and its latency was for hours. The individual, which is myself, I'm a full-time student and a full-time registered behavior technician. Therefore, my schedule was problematic with barely any room to obtain reinforcers during my daily routine. The behavior occurs when the individual is alone in her room and after she has finished carrying out her activities during the day. Because of her behavior, her health and the quality of her social interactions have declined, with her job and academic performance also experiencing a decline. The behavior has also placed the individual and others at risk while driving, since next day I felt tired for not sleeping the hours. The behavior has been occurring for 6 months, and the participant initially implemented the use of the alarm to reduce the time she spent awake engaging in other activities, which affects the set numbers of hours she desires to sleep every night, which is 8. The participant is described as having fluent verbal communication, having no limitations or medical diagnosis, able to follow directions, cues, and prompts. I also gather some ABC data collection as part of the functional behavior assessment. ABC data showed that the antecedent was the alarm going off, with the behavior being turning off, silencing, or ignoring the alarm. And the consequence, mainly maintaining the behavior, was to scroll through social media or watch TV for hours. Based on the functional assessment screening tool, FAST, it was observed that the function of the behavior was escaping from a task activity, sleeping in this case, gaining access to preferred activity, watching TV or scrolling through social media, and lastly, having automatic sensory stimulation experienced by the satisfaction of engaging on the activity itself.
So for me, I tend to stay up late in the night, resulting in only sleeping for 3 to 4 hours every day. And this has persisted for almost a year. Even if the nightly routine is done earlier, it is still ineffective. The extra time obtained from staying up late allows access to more time on the phone or watching movies, which are the behaviors that we need to reduce in order to get sufficient sleep. The antecedent is most likely reinforcements obtained from engaging in these activities. As an outcome of sleeping late, I'm exhausted and tired throughout the day, and my performance and concentrations has also been impacted, which can become detrimental as I am also a university student. So during the functional baseline assessment, some of the tools we used were the FAST and the ABC model to analyze and determine more information about the problem behavior. The findings within the FAST was that my problem behavior function had access to tangibles, likely from my time on the phone or watching movies. And then from the ABC, it also confirmed that the consequence of the behavior works as reinforcement, thus maintaining the behavior since I get to use my phone and I get to watch movies.
For me, I go to sleep past 11 p.m. every night. For consequence, I only sleep like 5 to 6 hours every night. So the maladaptive behavior I engage in is turning off my bedtime focus. That signals me it is time to go to sleep at 11 p.m. And I engage in watching TV instead for 1 or 2 more hours past my bedtime hour. I am a full-time student and a full-time registered behavior technician. So this schedule is affecting my energy through the day, affecting my job, and even sometimes affecting me from getting on time to work. So during the FBA, the tool that I used was the ABC model to analyze and determine more information about the problem behavior. So the ABC data that I collected showed that the antecedent was the alarm going off, with the behavior of being turning off the alarm, and the consequence was to watch TV past the bedtime hour instead.
So for my treatment package, I have some reduction interventions and teaching strategies. I started training on self-management skills. I created a visual schedule with TV and social media interactions limited to 45 minutes, starting at 7:30 every day, and finishing that at 8:15. With that, I wish to help decrease the maladaptive behavior and prevent it from occurring during bedtime, and create a more appropriate time to engage in that preferred activity without engaging in non-compliance when the alarm goes off to sleep. Reinforce was also available after completing the 45 minutes with favorite snack or favorite sons. I also limited the amount of caffeine for hours before the bedtime that was set at 11 p.m. and instead drink water or low sugar juices. I also had an alarm set to go off 30 minutes before bedtime so that it would signal it was time to engage in the bedtime routine. So it was better to prepare for the transition. I reduced stressors such as loud music and physical activities 1 hour before bedtime to increase relaxation and a smoothly transition. Electronic devices such as the phone and control remotes that will turn on the TV were placed at 10:30 every night on top of the dresser instead of having easy access to them on my nightstand. I lowered the AC to 73 Fahrenheit degrees and turned off all the lights in the room and took a relaxed, non-caffeinated tea with me into the room to use as a reinforcer if I was able to complete all the steps successfully. I use calming and relaxing breathing techniques during 5 minutes while in bed, which is something that I enjoy, and it's more a more appropriate behavior than the one I was engaging on and that I wanted to reduce, which was watching TV and scrolling through social media for hours. I turn on a white noise machine for about 30 minutes with calming sounds of the ocean and nature. This to have it as an alternative to the sounds that the TV or the social media will make before. Once the sounds will stop, I had completed all the steps, I will drink my warm tea. I also had differential reinforced for those alternative behaviors, such as using the calming and relaxing breathing techniques with verbal praising. I also had differential reinforced for incompatible behaviors, such as placing the phone and the TV control away from me. And I had additional reinforcing the verbal praising, favorite breakfast, and freshly made coffee every morning after being able to complete the entire strategy the night before.
So for my reduction intervention, the behavior I was reducing was using the phone and watching movies. And this will hopefully allow for me to, it will hopefully allow for the number of hours spent staying awake to also decrease, resulting in hopefully attaining quality sleep and healthier sleeping habits. So the curfew was 11 p.m. And so I made changes to my environment. So at around 10, I placed my phone to charge in the living room. And this will hopefully diminish the likelihood of me using the phone. So to decrease the likelihood of staying up watching movies, an hour before I moved to the backyard where they have a seating area so I can sit and relax. So in doing so, the possible access to the television was not present. In altering the environment and moving certain items, it will decrease my chances of staying up later. So the teaching strategy I used was instead of being on my phone or watching movies, I read a book as it provides a stress relief. And then since the phone and watching movies also normally are done to relax, reading a book would be a good alternative and also gives me a break from using the screens all day. So practicing meditation or mindfulness is another way to attain that stress release. By going outside, it allows for a moment of clarity and peacefulness from what occurred during the day. Both are substitutes to what would usually be achieved by using the phones or watching movies.
For my reduction intervention, was creating a bedtime routine. Since the maladaptive behavior was watching TV until late for too many hours, the new routine implied watching TV just 1 hour while eating my dinner. So from 7 to 8 p.m., I would do that. Then from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., I would take a bath. From 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., I would read a book. And from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., I will start my nighttime skincare routine. Then I will meditate 10 minutes before going to sleep at 11 p.m. The teaching strategies that I learned and that I put in practice was instead of watching TV, I will read a book or I will meditate. This will relax me and prepare me to go to sleep earlier. And it will give me a break from watching TV too many hours.
Baseline and treatment data. We have a summary and the efficacy of it. Um, so for my baseline and intervention data, it shows that the frequency and latency were tracked. So I could observe how many days of the week I was engaging on the actual maladaptive behavior and when was the time to sleep, and also to establish how long did it take me from the moment I received that signal from my phone that it was time to sleep to actually engage on the desired behavior. Baseline levels for latency show that before the intervention, it took me around 2.5 hours for me to transition to sleep. On the first day of the intervention, was applied a downward on the trend of the data can be observed since it took me only an hour and 0.5 for that night. After that, a steady decline on the latency of the behavior can be observed with some overall variability, but steady decline overall. Base, Baseline levels for frequency of the maladaptive show that I was engaging on the behavior 7 nights per week. After the implementation of the intervention, a decline on the trend is observed, with the first week after the intervention having only a frequency of 5 nights per week. The trend of the maladaptive behavior continues to decrease with no variability overall. Based on the trend and the variability of the data after the implementation of the intervention, I can say that the treatment plan has shown and demonstrated efficacy on targeting the maladaptive behavior while initially reducing and ultimately eliminating it.
So for my baseline intervention data, for the baseline, I decided to measure with duration. It was the most appropriate method to measure how many hours were spent staying awake after 11 p.m. So I recorded 1 week for the baseline. During the week, the average was around 4 to 5 hours. And then for the intervention, for the duration, there were some pockets of variability. However, there is a downward trend indicating that the treatment was effective in cutting the time. Towards the end, for almost a week, maintaining sleeping at around approximately 11 p.m.
For my baseline, I use to measure duration, how many hours I will stay after 11 p.m. after my bedtime hour. I recorded this for 1 week, and as you can see on the data on the chart, the average is 1 to 2 hours. That's how much I will stay up after my bedtime hour. Then when I implemented the intervention, as you can see on the graph, there's some variability, but there's also like a decreasing line towards the end of the week of March. You can see how much I could decrease that duration of going to sleep at 11 p.m. on time. The interventions that we use allow for the opportunity to change, decrease, or increase the behavior being targeted, while also reinforcing healthy sleeping habits and routines. So therefore, achieving the goal of sleeping 8 hours and not staying up later than 11 p.m. So getting at least 8 hours of sleep is crucial for the individual to be able to concentrate and perform various activities throughout the day successfully. Each of the interventions produce the intended result of improving, changing, modifying each respective sleep pattern. Therefore, in conclusion, we can conclude that our interventions have been effective.